Have you ever wondered what the name Formula One means? It can't just be a random made-up name, or is it? Welcome to this video on the history of Formula One. In this video, we'll take a look at how F1 started and how it's grown into the global sporting phenomenon it is today. The origins of Formula One can be traced back to the early years of the 20th century, when automobile racing began to gain popularity in Europe. The first organized motor race was held in France in 1894, and over the next decade, various other races and events took place across the continent. The origins of Formula One can be traced back to the early years of automobile racing in Europe, but it wasn't until after World War II that the sport really began to take shape. Formula One has grown into a global phenomenon from its humble beginnings, watched by millions of fans worldwide. In 1946, a group of European racing teams, including Alfa Romeo, Ferrari and Maserati, met in Paris to discuss the future of the sport. They agreed to create a set of rules for a new racing series that would be based on a specific formula, hence the name Formula One. The first official Formula One World Championship was held in 1950, and it was won by Italian driver Giuseppe Farina driving for Alfa Romeo. The championship consisted of 7 races held in Europe, including iconic tracks like Monza in Italy and Silverstone in the UK. At the time, Formula One was a relatively small and limited sport, with only a handful of teams and drivers competing in each race. The cars were simple and relatively slow compared to modern F1 cars, and there were few safety regulations in place. The cars of that era were powered by huge engines by modern standards, although they didn't produce as much power as their modern counterparts. The cars had a very basic design, with more focus on horsepower than aero at that time. Despite these challenges, Formula One gained a following among racing enthusiasts, and the sport slowly expanded beyond Europe. The first non-European race was held in Argentina in 1953, and over the next few decades, more and more countries hosted F1 races. The calendar expanded, and venues like South Africa, Italy, Silverstone, and Australia kept getting added as the sport gained popularity. The cars started improving, and teams poured funds into developing them. The sport attracted the rich and famous, and it was undoubtedly on an upward trajectory. It was in the late 60s and early 70s that we saw wings being introduced on F1 cars. Safety has also come a long way, as the number of casualties per year was about 2 to 3 drivers on average every year in those times. This number has fallen to 0 in recent years, with the only exception being the freak accident that took Jules Bianchi's life in 2016. Other than that, there's been no casualty in F1 in recent years, which is a testament to the FIA's focus on driver safety. In the 1960s and 1970s, Formula One began to attract a wider audience, thanks in part to the emergence of television. Legendary drivers like Jim Clark, Jackie Stewart, and Niki Lauda emerged, and they competed in some of the most iconic cars in F1 history. During this time, Formula One also began to attract major corporate sponsors, which helped to fund the teams and make the sport more professional. This led to the development of new technologies and innovations, which helped improve the car's performance. This time is often referred to as the golden age of Formula One. During this time, the sport became more popular and began to attract a global audience. Legendary drivers like Jim Clark, Jackie Stewart, and Niki Lauda emerged, and they competed in some of the most iconic cars in F1 history. In the 1970s, Formula One began to attract major corporate sponsors, which helped to fund the teams and make the sport more professional. This led to the development of new technologies and innovations, which helped improve the car's performance. The 1976 season is one of the most memorable in F1 history, with the rivalry between James Hunt and Niki Lauda taking center stage. The season ended with Lauda being badly injured in a crash at the Nürburgring, but he recovered and returned to the track just 6 weeks later. Hunt went on to win the championship, but it was Lauda's comeback that captured the imagination of fans around the world. There was even a movie that captured this year's essence named Rush, which was approved by the man himself, Niki Lauda. The 1980s and 1990s saw the emergence of new driving legends, such as Ayrton Senna and Michael Schumacher. These drivers dominated the sport and helped to popularize it around the world. During this time, Formula One became more focused on safety after several high-profile accidents. New safety measures were introduced, such as improved car design and racetrack changes. In the 21st century, Formula One has continued to evolve and grow. The sport's become even more global, with races held in countries like China, Bahrain, and Singapore. New technologies, such as hybrid engines and energy recovery systems, have been introduced, helping to make the cars more environmentally friendly. In recent years, Lewis Hamilton has emerged as one of the most successful drivers in F1 history. He's won 7 world championships and is widely regarded as one of the greatest drivers of all time. He's tipped to win 8 titles in the coming years and surpass Michael Schumacher, given he has a competitive car underneath him. The sport has produced some of the greatest driving legends in history and has driven technological innovation in the automotive industry. As Formula One continues to evolve, we can only imagine the future of this thrilling and exciting sport.